Sarah Martinez had grown accustomed to the whispers that followed her down the hallways of Riverside High School. At 17, she carried extra weight that made her the target of cruel jokes and sideways glances. Her classmates would snicker when she walked by, making comments about how she filled doorways or needed 2 seats. The football team particularly enjoyed their daily ritual of mooing sounds whenever she passed their lunch table. The small town of Cedar Creek, Texas, wasn't known for its kindness to those who stood out. Sarah's father worked double shifts at the local factory, while her mother cleaned houses to make ends meet. They lived in a modest trailer on the outskirts of town, where Sarah found solace in books and dreams of a different life. Her parents, both hardworking immigrants from Mexico, had taught her the value of perseverance, but even their wisdom couldn't shield her from the daily humiliation. During PE class, Sarah was always picked last for teams. Coach Williams would barely acknowledge her existence, assuming she couldn't keep up with the athletic requirements. When they ran laps around the track, other students would deliberately slow down behind her, making exaggerated panting sounds and jokes about earthquakes. The girls in the locker room would hold their breath dramatically when she changed clothes, pretending her presence somehow contaminated the air. Math class brought its own form of torture. Jake Morrison, the quarterback with a scholarship to State University, would drop pencils near her desk just to comment loudly about how she might crush them like twigs if she tried to pick them up. His girlfriend, Amanda Wells, the head cheerleader, would giggle and add her own cutting remarks about how Sarah probably ate the missing cafeteria food. Even some teachers seemed to join in the subtle discrimination, calling on her less frequently and showing obvious relief when she remained quiet. The breaking point came during lunch on a particularly difficult Tuesday. Sarah sat alone at her usual corner table, trying to enjoy the sandwich her mother had packed with a loving note in Spanish. Jake approached with his entire crew, their phones ready to record. He loudly announced that they were conducting a scientific experiment to see if the table could support that much weight during an earthquake simulation. They began shaking her table violently, causing her food and books to scatter across the floor. The cafeteria erupted in laughter as students pulled out their phones to capture Sarah's humiliation. Some began chanting "earthquake drill," while others made crude jokes about tectonic plates shifting. Sarah's face burned with embarrassment as she scrambled to collect her belongings from the dirty floor. The lunch supervisors did nothing, seemingly entertained by the spectacle unfolding before them. That evening, Sarah discovered the videos had been posted across social media platforms with hashtags like "Brain Earthquake Sarah" and "Daring Table Tester." The comments section filled with even more cruel observations about her appearance and size. Students from neighboring schools began sharing the content, expanding her humiliation beyond the boundaries of Cedar Creek. Her younger brother, Miguel, only 14, came home with tears in his eyes after defending her at his middle school, where the videos had also surfaced. Sarah's parents noticed her increased withdrawal and declining grades, but she couldn't bring herself to explain the full extent of her daily torment. How could she tell her hardworking mother, who already sacrificed so much, that her daughter had become the town's favorite target for entertainment? How could she burden her father, who worked 18-hour days, with the knowledge that his little girl was suffering while he couldn't protect her? The mockery extended beyond school grounds into the community. At the grocery store, teenage employees would snicker and make comments about her family's food choices. When she walked downtown, car windows would roll down so passengers could shout cruel observations about her appearance. Even adults seemed to find humor in her situation, with some parents using her as a cautionary tale to motivate their own children's diet and exercise habits. Sleep became Sarah's only escape from the constant judgment and ridicule. In her dreams, she was powerful and respected, capable of silencing her tormentors with skills they never imagined she possessed. But morning always came too soon, bringing with it another day of navigating hostile hallways and enduring public humiliation. She began to believe that perhaps her classmates were right, that she was somehow less deserving of respect and kindness because of her physical appearance. The isolation grew deeper as former friends distanced themselves to avoid becoming targets by association. Sarah ate lunch alone, walked to classes alone, and spent weekends alone while her peers enjoyed social gatherings she was never invited to attend. The loneliness felt almost as crushing as the daily mockery, creating a cycle of sadness that seemed impossible to break. Yet somewhere deep inside, beneath layers of hurt and self-doubt, A spark of determination flickered. Sarah's grandmother had often told stories of their ancestors who faced seemingly impossible challenges with courage and resourcefulness. These tales, whispered in Spanish during quiet evening visits, planted seeds of resilience that would soon find unexpected soil in which to grow. The same strength that carried her family across borders and through generations of hardship flowed in Sarah's veins, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Nobody in Cedar Creek could have predicted that the girl they mocked for her size would soon discover a talent that would not only silence their laughter, but completely transform their understanding of what it meant to be truly powerful. The rifle range at the edge of town would become the unlikely stage for Sarah's metamorphosis from victim to victor, proving that strength comes in forms that bullies never expect to encounter. The autumn afternoon when Sarah's life changed forever began like any other day of torment. After enduring another round of cafeteria humiliation, she decided to skip her last class and take the long way home through the woods behind Cedar Creek. The familiar path offered temporary refuge from the cruel stares and whispered comments that followed her everywhere. As she walked, tears of frustration blurred her vision, making her stumble over fallen branches and loose rocks. Lost in her misery, Sarah wandered further from her usual route than ever before. The dense Texas woodland gradually opened into a clearing she had never seen, revealing a sight that made her stop in her tracks. A weathered wooden sign read, "Cedar Creek Shooting Range, members only," and beyond it stretched a facility that looked like it had seen better decades. The sound of gunfire echoed through the trees, followed by encouraging shouts and the occasional cheer of success. Curiosity overcame caution as Sarah crept closer to observe the activity. Through gaps in the chain-link fence, she watched men and women of various ages taking turns shooting at targets positioned at different distances. Their concentration was absolute, their movements precise and deliberate. Something about the focused silence between shots, broken only by the crack of rifles and the ping of bullets hitting metal targets, captivated her attention completely. An elderly man with silver hair and weathered hands noticed her peering through the fence. Instead of shooing her away like most adults in town would have done, he approached with genuine curiosity. Frank Rodriguez had been running the shooting range for 30 years, and his keen eye for potential talent had discovered several championship shooters over the decades. Something about the young girl's intense focus on the shooters caught his professional attention. Frank introduced himself and asked if Sarah had ever handled a firearm before. When she shook her head nervously, he explained that shooting was one of the few sports where physical size meant absolutely nothing. Success depended entirely on mental discipline, hand-eye coordination, and the ability to control breathing and heartbeat. He had seen tiny elderly women outshoot burly construction workers, and teenagers defeat seasoned hunters with decades of experience. Despite her initial fear, Sarah found herself accepting Frank's invitation to observe a training session from inside the range. He explained the safety protocols with patience and respect she rarely experienced from adults. The shooters welcomed her presence without the mockery she expected, treating her like any other visitor interested in learning about their sport. For the first time in months, Sarah felt like she belonged somewhere. Frank demonstrated the basic shooting stance, explaining how proper form had nothing to do with body size and everything to do with balance and stability. He showed her how successful shooters came in all shapes and sizes, pointing out photos on the wall of champions who had trained at his range. Among them was Maria Santos, a woman who had overcome significant physical challenges to become a state champion, proving that determination mattered more than appearance. When Frank offered to let Sarah try shooting an air rifle, her hands trembled with nervousness and excitement. He guided her through the basic safety procedures, teaching her how to load the rifle, position her body, and align the sights. The weight of the weapon felt substantial but manageable in her hands. As she raised it to her shoulder, Frank quietly coached her breathing technique and trigger control. The first shot went wide of the target, but Frank's encouraging response surprised her. Instead of criticism, he offered gentle corrections about her stance and sight alignment. The second shot hit the outer ring of the target, earning genuine praise from nearby shooters who had paused to watch. Sarah felt a rush of accomplishment unlike anything she had experienced in years. Here was something she could do well, something that had nothing to do with her appearance or social status. As the afternoon progressed, Sarah's natural ability became increasingly apparent. Her shots grew more accurate with each attempt, and her confidence built with every encouraging word from Frank and the other shooters. They shared stories of their own journeys in marksmanship, emphasizing how the sport had taught them patience, discipline, and self-respect. Nobody mentioned her weight or made jokes about her appearance. Frank explained that competitive shooting required intense mental focus that could block out all external distractions. The bullies at school, the cruel comments, the social media harassment, none of that could follow her onto the firing line. When she aimed down the barrel of a rifle, only her skill and determination mattered. The target didn't care what she looked like or what others said about her. The revelation that she possessed genuine talent for marksmanship filled Sarah with a sense of purpose she had never known. Frank offered to teach her properly if she could get her parents' permission and commit to regular practice sessions. He explained that the range had a youth program designed to develop young shooters for competitive events, and he believed Sarah had the potential to excel at the highest levels. As the sun began to set, Sarah reluctantly prepared to leave her newfound sanctuary. Frank handed her several informational brochures about competitive shooting and youth programs, along with his business card containing contact information. He promised that if she decided to pursue marksmanship seriously, he would personally ensure she received the best training available in Texas. Walking home through the darkening woods, Sarah felt different than she had in months. The familiar weight of dread and anticipation of tomorrow's torment felt lighter somehow. She had discovered something that belonged to her alone, a skill that couldn't be taken away by cruel classmates or diminished by hurtful comments. The rifle had felt natural in her hands, like it was meant to be there. For the first time since the bullying began, Sarah allowed herself to imagine a future where she possessed power and respect. She pictured herself standing confidently at shooting competitions, earning recognition for her abilities rather than ridicule for her appearance. The fantasy felt both impossible and inevitable, like a destiny waiting to be claimed. That night, Sarah researched competitive shooting online, discovering a world of athletes who had found success through dedication and skill, rather than conventional physical attributes. Stories of underdogs who had risen to championship levels filled her with hope and determination. Perhaps her tormentors had unknowingly pushed her toward discovering her true calling. Convincing her parents to allow shooting lessons required more courage than Sarah had ever summoned before. Her mother, Maria Martinez, initially reacted with horror at the mention of firearms, remembering stories of violence from their homeland. Her father, Carlos, worked long hours and worried about the cost of any new activity. However, when Frank Rodriguez personally visited their home to explain the program and its safety measures, their concerns began to fade. Frank spoke to Sarah's parents in fluent Spanish, sharing his own background as the son of Mexican immigrants who had found purpose and discipline through marksmanship. He explained how competitive shooting had helped numerous young people develop confidence, focus, and life skills that extended far beyond the range. Most importantly, he offered to provide initial training at no cost. Believing strongly in Sarah's potential, the youth program at Cedar Creek Shooting Range operated 3 afternoons per week, attracting students from several surrounding schools. Sarah discovered that many participants were also outsiders in their own communities, drawn to a sport where individual merit mattered more than social status. The group included quiet intellectuals, homeschooled teenagers, and others who had found their niche in marksmanship rather than traditional athletics. Frank began Sarah's formal training with extensive safety education and basic marksmanship principles. She learned about different types of rifles, ammunition, and shooting positions. The technical aspects fascinated her, providing a welcome intellectual challenge that engaged her mind completely. Hours passed like minutes as she absorbed information about ballistics, wind compensation, and precision shooting techniques. Under Frank's patient guidance, Sarah's natural ability flourished rapidly. Her mathematical aptitude, which had gone largely unnoticed at school, proved invaluable for calculating distances and adjusting for environmental factors. Her steady hands and exceptional eye-hand coordination, gifts she never knew she possessed, allowed her to achieve precision that impressed even experienced shooters at the range. The physical demands of competitive shooting surprised Sarah initially. Maintaining proper stance for extended periods required core strength and endurance she had to develop gradually. Frank designed a training regimen that built her stamina while improving her shooting positions. She discovered muscles she didn't know existed and found satisfaction in pushing her body to achieve better performance. 3 weeks into her training, Sarah achieved her first perfect score on a standard target at 25 yards. The accomplishment felt more meaningful than any grade or recognition she had ever received at school. Frank's genuine pride in her progress provided the positive reinforcement she had craved for years. Other range members began taking notice of the quiet girl who could consistently hit bullseyes. Sarah's newfound passion required careful time management to avoid detection at school. She told her parents she was staying late for study groups, which wasn't entirely false since Frank emphasized the academic aspects of marksmanship. Her grades actually improved as the discipline and focus she learned at the range transferred to her schoolwork. The concentration required for precision shooting enhanced her ability to focus during classes. The transformation in Sarah's demeanor became noticeable to those who bothered to observe. She walked with slightly more confidence, spoke up occasionally in classes, and seemed less affected by the daily mockery from her classmates. However, she was careful not to reveal the source of her growing self-assurance. Knowing that bullies would find ways to corrupt anything that brought her joy, Frank introduced Sarah to competitive shooting rules and regulations, explaining various events and scoring systems. She learned about local, regional, and national competitions that attracted shooters from across the country. The possibility of earning scholarships through marksmanship excellence opened doors she had never imagined. Offering potential paths to college and beyond that didn't depend on traditional academic or athletic achievements. Advanced training sessions pushed Sarah to attempt increasingly difficult shots and challenging positions. Frank taught her to shoot from prone, sitting, kneeling, and standing positions, each requiring different techniques and muscle memory. She practiced in various weather conditions, learning to compensate for wind, rain, and changing light conditions that could affect accuracy. The mental aspects of competitive shooting proved as important as the physical skills. Frank worked with Sarah on visualization techniques, breathing exercises, and methods for maintaining concentration under pressure. He explained how elite shooters developed the ability to enter an almost meditative state, where external distractions disappeared completely. These lessons in mental discipline began affecting other areas of Sarah's life. Sarah's secret training created an interesting paradox in her daily existence. At school, she remained the target of constant ridicule and social isolation, but she now possessed knowledge and abilities that would astound her tormentors. The contrast between her public persona and private achievements created a sense of hidden power that sustained her through difficult moments. As her skills advanced, Frank began discussing the possibility of entering Sarah in local competitions. He explained that competitive shooting events were typically welcoming environments where participants supported each other, regardless of background or appearance. The shooting community valued accuracy and sportsmanship above all other considerations, creating exactly the kind of environment where Sarah could flourish. The prospect of public competition both thrilled and terrified Sarah. She yearned for the opportunity to demonstrate her abilities, but feared that exposure might somehow diminish the pure joy she found in shooting. Frank assured her that competition would enhance rather than corrupt her love for the sport, providing motivation for continued improvement and connecting her with other dedicated young shooters. Frank also began preparing Sarah for the psychological challenges of competition. He explained how some shooters attempted to intimidate newcomers through subtle comments or displays of expensive equipment. However, he assured her that once the competition began, only performance mattered. Her months of dedicated practice had prepared her to compete at levels that would surprise everyone, including herself. The secret nature of her training added an element of anticipation to Sarah's life that had been missing for years. Each day at school, she endured mockery, while knowing that afternoon would bring hours of purposeful practice and steady improvement. The bullies who made her life miserable had no idea they were tormenting someone who was becoming truly formidable in ways they couldn't imagine. The announcement of the regional youth marksmanship competition created a buzz of excitement at Cedar Creek Shooting Range, but for Sarah, it represented both her greatest opportunity and her deepest fear. Frank had been preparing her for this moment for 3 months, and her practice scores indicated she could compete at the highest levels. However, the competition would be held at a public venue where her secret might be exposed to the entire community. Frank registered Sarah for multiple events, including precision rifle shooting at various distances and a challenging mixed-position competition that tested adaptability and skill. He explained that her consistent accuracy during practice sessions suggested she could place highly against experienced competitors from across Texas. The entry fees were covered by the range's Youth Development Fund, removing any financial barriers to her participation. Preparation for the competition intensified as Frank introduced Sarah to the specific equipment and protocols she would encounter. She practiced with the same model rifles used in official competitions, learning to adjust quickly to unfamiliar weapons while maintaining her accuracy. The pressure of timed events and official scoring systems added new challenges that pushed her skills to higher levels. The night before the competition, Sarah could barely sleep. Her mind raced between excitement about demonstrating her abilities and terror about potential humiliation if she performed poorly. Worse still, she worried that someone from school might attend the event and discover her secret involvement in competitive shooting. The thought of Jake Morrison and his crew finding new ammunition for their mockery made her stomach churn with anxiety. Competition day arrived gray and windy, creating challenging conditions that would test every shooter's adaptability. Sarah arrived at the Beaumont Civic Center with Frank, carrying the rifle case that contained her most prized possession. The facility buzzed with activity as hundreds of young shooters from across the region prepared for various events. The diversity of participants surprised Sarah, including competitors of all sizes, backgrounds, and experience levels. Registration proceeded smoothly until Sarah encountered her first dose of pre-competition intimidation. Several experienced shooters from wealthy private schools made subtle comments about first-timers and small-town shooters who were out of their league. Their expensive custom rifles and matching team uniforms created an atmosphere of elitism that Frank had warned Sarah to expect and ignore. The precision rifle event began with competitors shooting from prone position at targets 100 yards away. Sarah's first shots landed consistently in the bullseye region, earning respectful nods from nearby competitors who had initially dismissed her presence. As the event progressed, her scores remained among the highest, surprising officials who had never heard of Cedar Creek Shooting Range or its unknown protege. Between events, Sarah overheard conversations about her performance from competitors and spectators. Words like natural talent and impressive accuracy reached her ears, providing unfamiliar but welcome recognition for her abilities. For the first time in her life, strangers were discussing her skills rather than her appearance, creating a surreal but empowering experience. The standing position event proved more challenging, as wind conditions affected bullet trajectory significantly. Sarah applied lessons Frank had taught her about reading environmental factors and compensating for external influences. Her mathematical aptitude served her well as she calculated adjustments that kept her shots on target, while other competitors struggled with the difficult conditions. As the day progressed, Sarah found herself among the top competitors in multiple events. Her name appeared on leaderboards that attracted attention from scouts and coaches looking for emerging talent. The possibility of earning recognition and potentially even scholarship opportunities began to feel real rather than fantastical. Frank beamed with pride as his student exceeded even his optimistic expectations. The final event, a challenging mixed-position competition, would determine overall individual rankings. Competitors had to demonstrate proficiency from prone, sitting, kneeling, and standing positions within strict time limits. Sarah's months of practice with position transitions gave her confidence as she prepared for the most demanding test of the day. During the competition's lunch break, Sarah noticed familiar faces in the spectator area that made her blood run cold. Jake Morrison, Amanda Wells, and several of their friends had apparently decided to attend the shooting competition as weekend entertainment. They pointed and laughed at various competitors, making crude comments about appearances and equipment. Sarah's secret was about to be exposed at the worst possible moment. The afternoon session began with Sarah's anxiety at peak levels. Knowing her tormentors were watching added psychological pressure she had never experienced during practice. Frank noticed her distress and reminded her of the mental discipline techniques they had practiced. He encouraged her to use the shooting range as sanctuary from external distractions, just as she had learned to do during training. As Sarah took her position for the mixed position event, she could hear Jake's voice carrying across the range area, making jokes about various competitors. The familiar sound of his mockery triggered months of suppressed anger and frustration. However, instead of cowering as she had done countless times at school, Sarah channeled those emotions into fierce determination to succeed. The first position, prone shooting, allowed Sarah to establish rhythm and confidence. Her shots grouped tightly in the center of the target, earning approval from range officials and fellow competitors. As she transitioned to sitting position, she noticed the spectator area had grown quieter, with more people paying attention to her performance. Moving through kneeling and standing positions, Sarah maintained exceptional accuracy despite the watching crowd and difficult wind conditions. Each successful shot built momentum and confidence, transforming her anxiety into focused energy. The bullies who had made her life miserable were about to witness talents they never suspected she possessed. As the final competition concluded, Sarah's scores placed her second overall among all competitors, including those with years of experience and expensive equipment. The achievement represented validation of her months of dedicated practice and Frank's excellent coaching. More importantly, it proved to herself that she possessed abilities worthy of respect and recognition. The awards ceremony would take place in 1 hour, providing time for final score calculations and preparation. Sarah faced a decision that would change her life forever. She could slip away quietly, preserving her secret while missing the recognition she had earned. Or she could claim her achievement publicly and face whatever consequences followed. The award ceremony took place in the main arena of the Beaumont Civic Center, with hundreds of spectators filling the bleachers to recognize the day's achievements. Sarah sat with other top finishers in a special section near the stage, her silver medal heavy in her trembling hands. Frank beamed with pride beside her, understanding the magnitude of what his student had accomplished in just 3 months of training. Competition officials began announcing results in reverse order, building suspense as they approached the highest placers. Sarah's heart pounded as she spotted Jake Morrison and his crew still lingering in the spectator section, apparently waiting to see if anyone from Cedar Creek had actually achieved anything noteworthy. Their presence added a layer of anticipation and dread to what should have been her moment of pure triumph. When the announcer called for second place in the mixed position event, Sarah rose on unsteady legs and walked toward the podium. The journey felt simultaneously endless and instantaneous as she processed the magnitude of this public recognition. Months of secret training and hidden talent were about to be revealed to everyone who had ever doubted her worth or dismissed her potential. The moment Sarah's name echoed through the arena's sound system, a wave of shocked silence swept through the Cedar Creek contingent in the spectator section. Jake Morrison's jaw dropped as he realized the girl he had tormented for months was standing on a competition podium, receiving recognition for exceptional marksmanship skills. Amanda Wells stared in disbelief, unable to reconcile the confident young woman on stage with the timid target of their daily mockery. As Sarah accepted her medal and certificate, the applause from fellow competitors and their families provided a stark contrast to the stunned silence from her schoolmates. The shooting community welcomed her achievement with genuine enthusiasm, recognizing talent and dedication rather than judging appearance or social status. For the first time in years, Sarah experienced what it felt like to be celebrated rather than ridiculed. The competition director praised Sarah's exceptional performance during his remarks, noting that her accuracy and composure under pressure marked her as a shooter with national-level potential. He mentioned that several collegiate coaches had expressed interest in following her continued development, opening doors to scholarship opportunities that could transform her educational prospects completely. Following the ceremony, Sarah found herself surrounded by competitors and coaches eager to congratulate her success and discuss future training opportunities. The contrast with her typical social interactions was so dramatic, it felt like entering an alternate reality where her worth was measured by achievement rather than appearance. These strangers treated her with respect and admiration she had never experienced from her own classmates. Frank's pride in his students' accomplishment was evident to everyone present. He had coached many successful shooters over the decades, but Sarah's rapid development and natural talent impressed even his experienced eye. During interviews with local sports reporters, he predicted that Sarah could compete at national levels within a year if she continued her current trajectory of improvement. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison and his crew gathered in the parking lot, trying to process what they had witnessed. The girl they had dismissed as weak and worthless had just demonstrated skills that none of them possessed. Their comfortable worldview, built on superficial judgments and social hierarchies, was cracking under the weight of undeniable evidence that they had completely misjudged someone they thought they knew. The drive home from Beaumont was filled with conversation about Sarah's future in competitive shooting. Frank discussed upcoming competitions, advanced training opportunities, and the possibility of connecting with elite coaches who could accelerate her development. College scouts had left business cards expressing interest in following her progress, creating options for higher education that hadn't existed that morning. Sarah's parents met them at the shooting range, having closed their respective workplaces early to celebrate their daughter's unexpected triumph. The medal represented more than athletic achievement. It symbolized the discovery of hidden talents and the possibility of a future they had never dared to imagine. Their daughter had found something she excelled at, something that could open doors previously considered unreachable. Word of Sarah's competition success spread quickly through Cedar Creek's tight-knit community. The local newspaper requested an interview and photo session, eager to feature a hometown athlete who had achieved regional recognition. The attention felt surreal to Sarah, who was accustomed to being ignored or mocked rather than celebrated for her accomplishments. At school the following Monday, Sarah's reception was dramatically different from previous days. Students who had never spoken to her approached with questions about competitive shooting and expressions of amazement at her hidden talents. Teachers who had previously overlooked her began acknowledging her presence and achievements, creating an atmosphere of respect she had never experienced in academic settings. However, not everyone adjusted easily to Sarah's newfound recognition. Jake Morrison and his inner circle struggled to maintain their previous attitudes towards someone who had proven herself exceptional in ways they couldn't dismiss or minimize. Their attempts at continued mockery fell flat when other students began defending Sarah and expressing admiration for her achievements. The shift in social dynamics created opportunities for Sarah to connect with classmates who had previously been afraid to associate with her. Students who had watched her being bullied from a safe distance began approaching with friendship and support, creating the beginnings of social connections she had never thought possible at Cedar Creek High School. Sarah's success also attracted attention from unexpected sources within the school community. The principal called her to his office not for disciplinary reasons, but to discuss her achievements and explore ways the school could support her continued development in competitive shooting. For the first time, an authority figure at school treated her as an asset rather than a problem. Frank presented Sarah with options for accelerated training programs that could prepare her for national level competitions within months rather than years. Elite shooting academies had extended invitations for summer training camps, and several universities had expressed preliminary interest in offering scholarships for promising marksmanship students. The transformation in how others perceived and treated Sarah created both opportunities and challenges she hadn't anticipated. While the respect and recognition felt wonderful after years of ridicule, she also felt pressure to maintain the standards that had earned her this new status. The stakes had risen significantly, and she would need to prove that her success wasn't a fluke. As Sarah reflected on the day's events, she realized that the rifle had indeed redefined what it meant to be truly powerful. Physical appearance and social status meant nothing when precision and skill were measured in fractions of inches at extraordinary distances. She had discovered that real strength came from dedication, practice, and the courage to pursue excellence despite opposition from those who failed to recognize her potential. The invitation to the National Youth Marksmanship Championship arrived just 3 months after Sarah's regional success, representing an opportunity that would have seemed impossible during her darkest days of bullying. Frank had submitted her scores and competition history to the selection committee, and her rapid improvement impressed officials enough to earn her a spot among the country's most promising young shooters. Preparation for national competition required a significant step up in training, intensity, and sophistication. Frank connected Sarah with Maria Santos, the former state champion whose photo hung on the range wall. Maria had overcome her own challenges to reach elite levels, and she agreed to mentor Sarah through the mental and technical demands of competing against the nation's best young marksmen. Under Maria's guidance, Sarah learned advanced techniques for reading wind conditions, compensating for altitude differences, and maintaining accuracy under the psychological pressure of high-stakes competition. The training regimen included visualization exercises, meditation practices, and simulated competition scenarios designed to prepare her mind for the intensity of national-level events. Sarah's academic performance continued improving as the discipline and focus required for elite marksmanship transferred to her classroom work. Teachers began recognizing her as a serious student with hidden depths, and her confidence in speaking up during class discussions grew significantly. The transformation was so dramatic that guidance counselors began discussing advanced placement, courses and college preparation, programs. The financial demands of national competition training required community support that Sarah's family couldn't provide alone. Frank organized fundraising events at the shooting range, and local businesses began contributing to Sarah's training expenses. The community that had once ignored or mocked her now rallied behind her success, recognizing the positive attention she brought to Cedar Creek. Media attention increased as Sarah's national ranking improved through subsequent competitions. Local television stations featured her story, and regional sports magazines highlighted her rapid rise from unknown newcomer to nationally ranked competitor. The coverage focused on her incredible accuracy and mental toughness rather than her appearance, creating the kind of recognition she had never thought possible. Training sessions with Maria revealed the psychological complexities of elite competition that went far beyond basic marksmanship skills. Sarah learned to manage pre-competition anxiety, maintain focus during long events, and recover quickly from occasional poor shots that could derail less prepared competitors. These mental skills proved as valuable in daily life as they were on the firing line. As word of Sarah's success spread beyond Cedar Creek, scholarship offers began arriving from universities with prestigious marksmanship programs. Academic institutions that had never heard of her 6 months earlier were now competing for her commitment to their shooting teams. The possibility of a full scholarship to a major university transformed her family's dreams about higher education. The contrast between Sarah's public recognition and her memories of recent humiliation created complex emotions she struggled to process. Former tormentors now approached with attempts at friendship and association, hoping to benefit from her reflected glory. Jake Morrison, in particular, seemed desperate to rewrite their history and position himself as having always supported her efforts. Frank arranged for Sarah to train with equipment that matched what she would encounter at national competitions. The precision rifles and specialized accessories cost more than her family's monthly income, but sponsors began providing support in exchange for representing their brands. For the first time, Sarah experienced what it felt like to have companies invest in her potential. The National Youth Marksmanship Championship would take place in Colorado Springs, marking Sarah's first trip outside Texas and her introduction to truly elite competition. Participants included junior Olympic development team members, private academy students who trained year-round, and third-generation competitive shooters with access to world-class coaching from childhood advanced training sessions revealed areas where Sarah needed improvement to compete effectively against such experienced opposition. Her natural talent remained exceptional, but she needed to develop consistency under various environmental conditions and pressure situations that she had never encountered. Maria designed intensive preparation programs to address these challenges. Sarah's transformation extended beyond marksmanship into overall confidence and self-presentation. She began carrying herself differently, speaking with authority about subjects she understood, and demonstrating leadership qualities that attracted positive attention from teachers and classmates. The quiet, withdrawn girl who had hidden in corners was emerging as someone who commanded respect. The psychological impact of sudden recognition and success created new challenges that Sarah had to navigate carefully. While positive attention felt wonderful after years of ridicule, she also felt pressure to maintain performance levels that had elevated her status. The fear of failure now carried stakes she had never experienced. As an anonymous target of bullying community, support for Sarah's national competition appearance grew beyond anything Cedar Creek had ever shown for a local athlete. Businesses displayed signs wishing her luck. The local newspaper ran daily updates on her preparation, and fundraising events attracted participation from residents who had previously ignored her existence completely. Frank's pride in his students' development was evident to everyone who observed their training sessions. Sarah had exceeded even his most optimistic projections, demonstrating improvement rates that suggested she could compete at international levels within a few years. Professional coaches had begun expressing interest in working with her long-term development. The approach of national competition created anticipation throughout Cedar Creek that Sarah had never experienced. Students at school began wearing supportive t-shirts. Teachers incorporated her story into lesson plans about perseverance and achievement, and the principal announced plans to broadcast the competition results during morning announcements. As Sarah prepared for the most important competition of her young career, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from daily humiliation to national recognition in less than a year. The rifle that had initially provided escape from torment had become the tool for achieving dreams she had never dared to imagine. Her story was just beginning, but she had already proven that true power came from developing talents that others failed to recognize or appreciate. The bullies who had made her life miserable now watched from a distance as she prepared to represent their community on a national stage. Their understanding of strength and worth had been permanently altered by witnessing someone they had dismissed demonstrate abilities that commanded respect from elite athletes and coaches across the country. The National Youth Marksmanship Championship in Colorado Springs brought together the most talented young shooters in America, creating an atmosphere of intensity and excellence that pushed Sarah beyond anything she had previously experienced. Competing against athletes who had trained at elite facilities since childhood, she faced the ultimate test of her rapid development and natural abilities. During the first day of competition, Sarah's performance exceeded even Frank and Maria's optimistic expectations. Her scores placed her among the top 5 competitors in multiple events, earning recognition from coaches and scouts who had never heard of Cedar Creek, Texas. The girl who had been mocked for her size was now competing against the best young marksman in the country and holding her own remarkably well. The precision rifle event, Sarah's strongest discipline, showcased the exceptional accuracy that had first caught Frank's attention months earlier. Despite challenging wind conditions and the pressure of national competition, she maintained consistency that impressed veteran coaches and competitors alike. Her mathematical approach to environmental compensation set her apart from shooters who relied primarily on instinct and experience. Media coverage of Sarah's unexpected success at nationals brought attention to her remarkable story of transformation from bullying victim to elite athlete. Sports journalists were fascinated by the narrative of a small-town girl who had discovered world-class talent after years of being overlooked and dismissed by her community. The story resonated with audiences who understood the pain of being underestimated. On the final day of competition, Sarah achieved what no one had dared to predict. She won the national championship in precision rifle shooting for her age group. The victory was so unexpected that officials double-checked her scores before announcing results. Frank wept openly as his student received recognition as the best young precision shooter in America, validating months of intensive training and unwavering belief in her potential. The award ceremony was broadcast live across multiple sports networks, bringing Sarah's achievement to national attention. As she stood on the podium with the gold medal around her neck, millions of viewers witnessed the culmination of an incredible journey from anonymous bullying target to national champion. Her composed demeanor and gracious acceptance speech impressed audiences nationwide. Returning to Cedar Creek as a national champion created a reception unlike anything the small town had ever organized. The airport arrival was covered by television crews, and hundreds of community members gathered to welcome home their unexpected celebrity. The girl who had once walked through town enduring mockery now rode in a parade celebrating her extraordinary achievement. At Cedar Creek High School, Sarah's reception was nothing short of triumphant. Students who had participated in or witnessed her humiliation now competed for her attention and association. Teachers incorporated her story into curricula about perseverance and achieving potential, and administrators began developing programs to identify and support students with hidden talents. Jake Morrison and Amanda Wells, her former tormentors, struggled to navigate their new reality where their victim had achieved success beyond their comprehension. Their attempts to approach Sarah with congratulations and friendship requests were met with polite but distant responses that made clear the past couldn't be easily forgotten or forgiven. College scholarship offers poured in from universities across the country, each competing to recruit the young woman who had proven capable of achieving excellence at the highest levels. Academic institutions offered full scholarships that would provide world-class education and continued development in competitive shooting. Sarah's future, once limited by financial constraints, was now filled with prestigious opportunities. Frank's shooting range experienced unprecedented attention as the training ground where a national champion had developed her skills. Enrollment in youth programs increased dramatically as parents sought similar opportunities for their children. The facility that had provided refuge for Sarah now served as inspiration for other young people seeking to discover their own hidden talents. Sarah's success created ripple effects throughout the Cedar Creek community that extended far beyond competitive shooting. Her story encouraged other students to pursue unconventional interests and seek excellence in areas that might not receive traditional recognition. Teachers began looking more carefully for untapped potential in students who might be overlooked by conventional metrics. The psychological impact of achieving national recognition fundamentally changed how Sarah viewed herself and her place in the world. The confidence gained through marksmanship success transferred to every aspect of her life, enabling her to speak publicly, pursue leadership opportunities, and advocate for other students who faced bullying and discrimination. Media appearances and speaking engagements provided platforms for Sarah to share her story with audiences nationwide. Her message about finding strength through developing hidden talents resonated with people who had faced their own challenges with bullying, discrimination, or being underestimated by others. She became an advocate for looking beyond superficial judgments to recognize potential in unexpected places. Professional coaching opportunities emerged as Sarah's national championship opened doors to elite training programs. Olympic development coaches expressed interest in working with her long-term preparation for international competition. The possibility of representing the United States in world-class events transformed from fantasy to realistic goal within her grasp. Sarah's relationship with her parents deepened as they watched their daughter achieve recognition they had never imagined possible. The sacrifices they had made to support her training were rewarded beyond their wildest dreams, and their pride in her accomplishment was evident to everyone who witnessed their reactions to her success. The transformation of Cedar Creek's perception of Sarah served as a powerful lesson about the dangers of judging people based on appearance or social status. Her achievement forced the community to confront their own biases and reconsider how they evaluated and treated individuals who didn't fit conventional expectations of success or potential. As Sarah prepared for the next phase of her competitive career and educational journey, she reflected on the incredible distance she had traveled from the frightened, ridiculed girl who had discovered a rifle range by accident. The weapon that had provided escape from torment had become the tool for achieving dreams she had never dared to imagine possible. Her story continued to inspire others who faced similar challenges, proving that true strength comes from developing talents that may not be immediately obvious to others. The bullies who had made her life miserable had unknowingly pushed her toward discovering abilities that would define her legacy and transform countless lives through the power of her example. Sarah Martinez had redefined what it meant to be truly powerful, demonstrating that precision, discipline, and determination could overcome any amount of mockery or underestimation. Her journey from victim to champion would inspire generations of young people to look beyond surface judgments and pursue excellence wherever their unique talents might lead them.